Bet Online has the fourth dildo throwing line up on their site. Green is a heavy minus 250 favorite, followed by blue at plus 100. Boy, what a time to be alive. Welcome to the 202nd episode of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is my fabulous co-host, Todd Corder, and of course, my wonderful producer, Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee. And you can catch us all at ATL Prime Sports across the board. That's Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and of course, Apple and Spotify. As always, if you like the content, please give us a like, a subscribe, and a follow or a review on Apple and Spotify. That'd be wonderful. Our personal X's at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, at Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder, and at LG for Real Though for Larry Gardner, who is in the field this evening. Wayne, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. Actually, I'm wearing my Texas Ranger hat because I'm excited about the fact that they may not only be able to get into the playoffs via wild card, but they're only 5 games back in their division, so they may end up not needing a wild card.
They're right back in the thick of things. Todd, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good. If you guys want to watch some NFL or college football, it's going to cost you nearly $700 to stream the nationally televised NFL games this fall across 6 different streaming platforms. Just think about this. You want to add nearly 500 more if you want a Sunday ticket. I mean, cable was much better for me. All this is crazy. And then, of course, everybody's got to be surprised how much it costs to take an entire family to a sporting event. Just think for tickets, food, drink, parking, at a pro or major college sport, Division I. The thing is north of $500 per game. And that's not even the high end of it. That's just the bare minimum to get in the door. And, I just wonder how long this can continue in the near future, because the average individual is already priced out. That's something that we'll see as it continues. Football is so expensive. Of course, a Major League Baseball game, that's a little bit different. But if you want a great seat in a Major League Baseball game, since Wayne mentioned baseball, you're going to pay big money to sit near the plate. That's just the way it is. These organizations now are doing a special seat where you want to sit and et cetera. They'll, where they bring you the food and service and all that, but you're going to pay for it. And I would imagine most of those folks are corporations and their corporate tickets. I don't know if you guys ever see a lot of these games behind home plate now. You see a lot of empty seats because corporations are having them. So I just thought I'd let everyone know you're going to see this. You're going to see this in the near future. It's going to continue to go on.
Yeah, it's going to get bigger and bigger, and more and more money to watch these ball games. What's on tap for today's show? Eric Taylor from the Bulldog Report. That's BULLDAWG on X. Bulldog Report, or Report Bulldog, on X. Coach's poll is out. We give our 2 cents. We talk about the MLB trade line, winners and losers, and who gets into that postseason. And we kind of revisit our picks from the beginning of the year. And we are days away from Georgia's 2025 kickoff versus Marshall. Here today talking all things dogs. Eric Taylor from the Bulldog Report. Eric, thanks for coming on. How you doing this evening, Eric?
I'm really good. Thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely. We inch closer and closer to kickoff for Marshall. Anticipation is beyond right behind every fan. It's just every team, every fan thinks their team's ready to go. But with Georgia being in the top 5 in that latest coaches poll, let's talk some transfers. We're in the transfer portal era, the NIL era, Eric. Which transfer will have the biggest impact on the 2025 season for the Dogs? My personal opinion is going to be Elo Medozi, the outside linebacker from Army. This guy can move left and right. Guy can stop the run, cover the pass. Who do you think's the biggest impact transfer for the Dogs this fall?
I believe Elo is also going to be a big impact, but since you touched on him, I was just watching the SEC Any Given Saturday documentary yesterday, and I swear every time they showed Texas A&M on there, Noah Thomas was making a highlight catch. I see a big year coming for him.
Yeah, okay, so we'll stick with the Dogs. You have another train like Zachary Branch, the wide receiver. We'll stick with just Georgia and kind of concentrate on your specialty here. I think Zachary Branch is another guy from SC that hasn't really flourished as his former 5-star ranking, 4 or 5-star ranking would prove. What are your thoughts on the wide receiver transfer from SC?
I think he's going to be a good addition, not only at wide receiver, but also in the return game. I don't think Georgia's had a returner of his dynamic ability since Isaiah McKenzie.
You're listening to Eric Taylor right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can catch Eric on X at Report Bulldog. That's BULLDAWG, the Bulldog Report on X. Todd, go ahead, man.
Yeah, Eric, to me, when you look at Georgia and you look at the potential they have this season, to me, it's going to come down in the trenches. Can the offensive line gain some consistency? Because that was a problem a year ago. And is there really enough depth on the defensive line? I mean, Georgia has a lot of quote-unquote, NFL-looking bodies getting off that bus. But that's something that to me is probably their 2 biggest question marks this season. I know you mentioned it on your Twitter feed there on X that they're going to be fine in the offensive line. Your thoughts on the O-line and D-line in depth?
I believe last year a lot of the problem was the opposite line for Georgia was the walking wounded. We lost time with Ernest Green was hurt for a few games. Tate Ratledge was hurt for a few games. Even Jared Wilson missed a couple of games. I think at last count there was like 4 or 5 different combination of offensive linemen used over the year last year, and no group played together longer than 5 games. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the performance because guys couldn't gel together because it was like as soon as you got used to the guy next to you, he went out with an injury and we had a new guy come in. I do believe we have better depth this year at offensive line than we did last year. But to your point about depth, I'm more worried about the depth of the defensive line than I am the offensive line this year because as soon as you get past, Gabe Harris, Xavier McLeod, and Christian Miller, you have either a redshirt freshman, you have Justin Green, who's a redshirt freshman, you have Nazir Johnson, who's a redshirt freshman. Jordan Hall actually is a redshirt sophomore. He should actually be very impactful this year. But it's like Kirby was talking about. There, 54% of the roster is either a first or second year guy, and that really shows itself in the defensive line depth.
You know what? You came right to a follow-up, and I thank you for that. I mean, you mentioned the team's youth. Almost half of its roster is made up of freshmen and redshirt freshmen. So, it's a really young bunch and a young football team. You've only got 7 returning starters, 4 on the offense and 3 on the defense from a year ago. To me, we're going to see, Marshall, Austin P, no problem. But going to Tennessee in week 3, that's going to be really interesting for Georgia with such a young team to go in that kind of environment.
Agree. I think most of the experienced guys on the roster are the starters. So, like, as soon as you get past that first wave of players, I don't think Georgia not only is it inexperienced, so like when you look at going to a place like Tennessee and that environment and how that's going to be, um, the bad thing is like the scary thing is we're an injury or two from, you know, playing guys that really have no experience in this league. Now, the one thing that I will say though is Kirby's really good about rotating guys and getting guys snaps in games, especially along the offensive line and the defensive line. Wide receivers rotate a lot also. So they won't be coming in exactly blind, but they also, if they're, I don't want to say that we can't depend on them because, I mean, we have talent. Like, there's guys that aren't as experienced as the guys in front of them, but that doesn't mean they're not as talented as the guys in front of them. But yeah, when you're talking about going to Tennessee and that environment, the good thing about that game in particular is I believe Tennessee is not going to be what they've been in the last 2 or 3 years. I believe that program is going to take a step back with everything that happened to them this spring. So, I mean, that's an interesting game actually.
An early season SEC battle going up to Rocky Top. If Tennessee wins that one, they got a pretty easy schedule till late November, and when they take on the Tide and the latter half of that schedule is a little tougher. But boy, Todd, you and I talked about that one. Tennessee schedule after Georgia, fairly manageable for in terms of SEC schedules. Eric, I'll talk to you about another wide receiver who hasn't really been talked about this much, as much as I thought he would be. It's really kind of an addition by getting a guy back and out of legal trouble. It's Colby Young. Your thoughts on Colby Young and what he can mean for Georgia this fall?
I think he's going to be the go-to receiver this year. He missed like half the season last year, but even though that unfortunate situation happened to him, he was cleared to practice with the team. I think it was weeks after he was suspended, so he wasn't playing in games because he wasn't cleared to play. But he's been practicing with the team, you know, every week since late last November. So I mean, I think when you talk about like Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas and the very talented freshmen that Georgia brought in with this past recruiting class, I think Colby's that one experienced guy, like you said, that's not really talked about a lot because he kind of, you know, he didn't play after November, but he comes back. He's been practicing. He's in the system. You know, this will be his second year in the system because he didn't miss any time actually as like practice-wise. He only missed games. So I think his experience is going to be huge coming into this year because even though, you know, you have a Noah Thomas, you have a Zachariah Branch, even though they've been in college football before, you know, it's still their first year around this program, getting used to this system, how we do things. So having a guy that transferred in and has experienced that and can kind of relate to that can kind of help them, you know, translate over to hopefully being productive faster, going through the fact that he went through this last year.
Well, I'll tell you what, Eric, you know, with Georgia, everybody's talking about Gunnar Stockton. I broadcasted one of his games, a state playoff game in Rayburn County up there in northeast Georgia, right before you get to North Carolina. And, you know, I saw him do a playoff game as a freshman. He looked really good. He's got a good arm. You know, he was in a tough situation last year, taking over for Carson Beck in the SEC title game. You know, they won the game. And, of course, Notre Dame threw a lot of looks at them, and Georgia, honestly, they really struggled to put any consistency consistency in the offense to get some points on the board as they lost 23 to 10 to Notre Dame. So with Stockton, though, here's something to me that's really good for him. He's going to have a lot of checkdowns to probably two of the best tight ends in the country, and obviously Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky. I'm thinking that's what George is going to do to try to simplify the offense, to let him check down to them and keep things, nice and manageable, especially on first, a good first down play and get it second and short, where then you can throw the ball deep if you want, or you can run the ball and not keep Georgia's young offensive line out of second and third and long.
Absolutely. I was just reading an article earlier today from CBS Sports that was talking about Mike Bobo's press conference. He was talking about Gunner and what they were focusing on with Gunner right now is his decision making. They're trying to get him more snaps so they can work on that part of his game, the mental part of his game. And one of the things that I've been paying attention to that I think a lot of fans especially don't talk about is a quarterback's ability to keep the offense in the right play. And I think Gunner's more that type of quarterback than Carson Beck was last year. I didn't really see Carson checking a lot out of things and looking at the defense and checking into a play that he thought didn't fit. Like I remember a very upset Carson actually getting mad and saying some choice things that you could see on TV about the plays that were being called. But from what I've heard in like press conferences and stuff this year is Georgia quarterbacks go to the line of scrimmage with 3 or 4 plays that at any time they can check to. Yeah, I'll stay off the Carson thing. But like the leadership and the ability to keep Georgia's offense in the right place is something I see from Gunner. And like you said, I think the offensive line is going to be a big factor with his progression this year, because I've been saying I believe we're going to be a run-first offense this year. I think we're going to run first. We're going to play action. We're going to limit how much the offense is on Gunner's shoulders. Not that he can't shoulder it, but I think that's going to be the approach. That's the reason why we have so much depth at running back this year. I think they saw last year that when we only had 2 guys that were healthy, that just didn't work. You put that, you have 2 guys healthy in the running back room. You're thin at offensive line because of all the injuries, and it really limited what we could do in the run. But even with all that going on, even with Georgia's receivers leading the league in drops, Gunner had more passing yards versus Notre Dame's secondary than any other playoff quarterback that played them. And his quarterback rating was actually the 3rd highest against Notre Dame all year last year. And the quarterback with the highest quarterback rating against him just happened to have Jeremiah Smith on his team. So, I mean, I'm sure any quarterback in college football would love to have Jeremiah Smith on his team.
Yeah, it's one of the best players in college football. Him and his 18-year-old, I'm sure we'll hear it all the time now, Ryan Williams and Tuscaloosa, 2 of the best in the business. Let's talk about that offense a little bit more. You mentioned Mike Bobo. Georgia fans have been up in arms calling for Mike Bobo's job. I think that's a little far-fetched. I think he's done nothing but score points, and it's not his fault all those receivers dropped the ball, as you mentioned last year. That would have helped out a lot in the points per game, the yards per play for Bobo's offense. What were your thoughts on Mike Bobo and this offense moving forward?
I'm actually a big Mike Bobo supporter. I felt like you said with Georgia fans, I felt like I've been on the defensive a lot when it comes to him this offseason.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You and I have talked about that on X back and forth a couple of times. We agree. I think the the fire Mike Bobo height is completely uncalled for. The guy's a great offensive coordinator and a dog through and through. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead. We agree.
Oh, you're good. But what you said reminded me of something. And like, I will never dog Todd Monken. And some people misunderstand me when I say what I'm about to say. So I'm going to go ahead and front load it with, I'm a Todd Monken fan. I love what he did. He got us back-to-back championships. I will never say a cross word about him. However, I will bring up the fact that people say fire Mike Bobo without understanding that Mike Bobo hasn't had, Kenny McIntosh, Brock Bowers, A.D. Mitchell, George Pickens, who was the kid that went to Alabama? Now I can't even remember his name, but like the
Todd, the guy who hit the girl, what's his name?
Jermaine.
I don't recall that. I don't recall that at all. I mean,
I know the Tennessee-Alabama game. Yeah, we've talked about it.
Yeah, I don't recall who did it, but I know it happened. I can't remember the player's name.
Oh my goodness! Why can't I think of that wide receiver's name? Go ahead, Eric. It'll come to me soon.
But those offenses were stacked. Again, not to take anything away from what Monken schemed up and everything. Bobo is not working with that same level of. I mean, he got Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers in a year where both of them were injured. So like the other thing, I don't know if we discussed this. People have talked about, what plays he calls, and on X, I compared the concepts that Todd was using in 2022 and the concepts that Bobo used in 23 and 24 are pretty much the exact same as what Todd did. Now, their percentages might be different because, of course, they're different play callers, but they pretty much are using the exact same offense. I hate to say it this way. I think one coordinator is working with less talent than the other one was.
Yeah, I can agree with that statement to an extent. It was Jermaine Burton. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, that's what I had it as soon as he started talking. I just remembered it was Jermaine Burton, no question.
Jermaine Burton. Todd, go ahead, buddy, if you got a follow-up.
Oh, I'm going to go back to that offensive line because, two stunning statistics from a year ago for Georgia, which is really just shocked me, was they were 102nd in rushing at 124 yards a game, and the defense gave up 129 per game, and they were 36th. And, they lost 3 games, and the games they lost to were really good teams. They had a brutal schedule from a year ago. They did get the 2 wins against Texas, but the rest of the wins at Georgia Tech was okay, were teams that they were expected to beat. And now when you look at this year's schedule, this is a team that's going to win nine games standing on its ear, even with a porous offensive line. I'm not using porous, but one that's not up to Georgia standards. And that glared out in the Notre Dame game. They really won the line of scrimmage. That's why they won the ball game. And also a special teams big play. Is that something that's concerning Kirby Smart and his coaching staff?
One of the first things that Kirby mentioned in his fall camp opening press conference was they were concentrating on running the ball and stopping the run. And I could not have been grinning harder to hear that, because that's all I wanted to hear. Like, that's your number one priority? That should have been your number one priority. And like, he understands it. That's his focal point right now is we have got to run and we have got to stop the run. And that's really been Georgia's MO under him the entire time he's been here. So I'm really not surprised to hear him say that.
Not only was it Georgia's MO under Kirby, which they've done it as good as anybody. I mean, look at the tailbacks that have gone at the next level. And this Nate Frazier kid, he's a California native, and he had a really good freshman season ago. They think this kid can be a star. Of course, he had the game winner in overtime versus Tech a year ago. This is something, even going back to Mark Richt, Georgia was always able to run the ball. And, I expect an improvement this season despite the lack of quote-unquote returning starters, because, like you said, that's something they have really emphasized in practice from day one.
You're listening
Absolutely.
to Eric Tate. Oh, go ahead, Eric. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all I was going to say. You're good.
Yeah, I was just going to highlight you again. You're listening to Eric Taylor right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can catch Eric on X at Report Bulldog. That's ReportBullDawg. If you're a Dogs fan, you know how to spell it. Well, Eric, tell our listeners how they can get you elsewhere and read your articles, your website. Shout out all that stuff now, man, and we'll let you get out of here. I know you're a busy man.
All right. You can, I do have a blog. It's the Bulldog Report .wordpress.com. I believe is how they do all that. And I do write I write articles from time to time. I'm not as active on there as I probably should be, but I do get more active during the season. And like you said, you can catch me on Twitter on @ReportBulldog.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Eric, thanks for coming on. Wayne, go ahead.
I was going to say, Eric, we're going to have all those links and everything in the description of the video also, so people just move their mouse over and click on it.
All right.
Perfect. Again, Eric Taylor from the Bulldog Report. Eric, thanks for joining us, man. We'll have to catch up with you later on in the season.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate y'all.
All right.
Absolutely. Have a good night. Eric Taylor again, Bulldog Report. You can catch him on X at Report Bulldog. Let's go and stick with college football. The college football coaching's poll did come out recently. Texas is on top of the list. What do you think of the coaches poll, guys? It's pretty common to see Texas across that. They're the preseason number one in most people's eyes. They finished right there in the top four at the end of the season. In comes Arch Manning, all the hype. And with all the hype, this was the first time that Texas has ever been atop the preseason coaches poll in program history. That kind of blew my mind, guys. Your thoughts on the coaches poll? Wayne, we'll let you tee it off, man. You haven't talked a little bit. What's your thoughts on the coaches poll?
Well, I tell you, I looked at the graphic, which is up on the screen right now for the YouTube listeners, and right dead center, number 13, was the Gamecocks of South Carolina. And I'm wondering, are they trying to hype them again and trick everybody into thinking they've got national championship hopes? Because I fall for that every single year. And now I'm looking at that right in the middle, and I'm thinking, dadgum, are they going to trick me into picking South Carolina again?
Are you falling for it this year, Wayne?
I don't know, man. It's tempting. Now that I see this, now that the coaches have spoken.
Todd, what's your thought, man? You've seen the coaches poll. Texas sits at top, Georgia at 4. Penn State's in there.
I really don't pay attention to it. It really doesn't matter. It's just something for somebody to talk about before the season. That's all it is. I don't even think a poll needs to come out until about 4 weeks into it. But this is the way that college football's always done it. You've had a coaches poll, a media poll, and, I'm glad that the playoff poll does not come out until much later in the season. I would hate for that to come out during week one. I really don't think much about it. You mentioned the Texas hype. They're going to play Ohio State in week one at Ohio State. Texas 1, Ohio State 2. College football and Fox Sports are the biggest winners there. And, a lot of this stuff is based upon a year ago, how they did, how many people are returning. You mentioned the darling Arch Manning. where he'll finally get a chance to take over after sitting for 2 years. And he did play some games. He definitely has experience. But, the one that catches me the most is Penn State at 3. They've got a lot of returning players, returning quarterback. They've got an excellent defense. They took away Ohio State's defensive coordinator. I can see Penn State going a long way this year. And I tell you what, looking at Alabama at 8, I think that Alabama is a top 5 team. And you look at their roster, that is a team, they returned 13 starters from a year ago. That's more than any team in the SEC, unless you want to include kicker and punter, and I'm not including that. I'm just including from the top 22, 6 on offense, 7 on defense. Really, Alabama's question mark is quarterback. Ty Simpson has played, sparingly, has not played a whole lot. He didn't beat out Milroe. So he's going to get a chance. And see Alabama, the running backs, will see if they can step up that production. But I think Alabama, if we're going to complain about a preseason poll that really has no impact on the season at all, I would say Alabama at 8 is further down than I would have put them.
How do you feel about South Carolina being even in that top 25?
I think it's smart. You have Lenora Sellers. You have a team that ended the season with 2 big wins. Not a big one in the bowl win. They'd love to have that bowl game back, but a lot of hype there, a lot of quarterback hype in the top of the SEC with Florida and Lagway and Sellers in South Carolina. Lots of questions there at the top too. I'm like Todd. I think a coach's poll is fine for the preseason. Coaches get together, put some teams out, yes. But anything preseason poll, I think it's just for clicks, clickbait, all the above, because I think you really can't tell till about 2-3 weeks in what teams are, where teams are ranked, where they fall. But this is the business we are in, and it is always fun to talk about college football, whichever way you're doing it. And here we are talking about it. And yeah, Wayne, I am high on South Carolina. I think they have an opportunity to do something that they haven't done since Steve Spurrier was there. And if they can play their cards right, they don't play Georgia. If they're able to play their cards right and they're one of those top 2 teams, they have an outside shot at getting to the title game in Atlanta because of the way their schedule sets up. So the hype is real. It's just, do they drop that one early?
JJ, their schedule is brutal. I mean, it is. They're going to play Vodtech week 1. They're going to play in consecutive weeks at LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, at Ole Miss, at A&M. They'll get Coastal Carolina, and then they play Clemson. And that, to me, is one of the toughest schedules in the country.
It's tough, but it's manageable in terms of home and away games. I really like the way their schedule lines up. Sure, it's tough. Like I said, every schedule is tough in the SEC, no doubt about it. But when you're South Carolina and you look at that LSU game last year, they were 1 play away. You look at the Alabama game, they were 1 play away. So they've managed the schedule last year. They did pretty well at the end of the season, as I mentioned. And I think they have a team, a quarterback that's poised, a coach that's poised. I think everything pointing up in Columbia, South Carolina. So yeah, I think they're, for a tough schedule, the way it lines up. Again, you don't play Georgia, you still play Clemson, you still play Bama, as you mentioned, but those guys.
I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's a brutal schedule. The way it lines up is manageable.
I don't see it. Too much of a gauntlet.
The game that I think is going to be the highlight game for South Carolina is going to be when they play at Ole Miss, and I think it's going to be because I want to see how Shane Beamer and Lane Kiffin interact with each other, because that's going to be exciting just to watch the coaches do their thing.
Yeah, but my point about South Carolina was they got Bama at home, they got Oklahoma at home, Ole Miss. Yeah, it's a tough place to play, but We
It's
don't know.
doable.
They don't have Jackson Dart. We think Austin Simmons is going to be up in there, but you never know. So I think for a very tough schedule, you start off versus Virginia Tech, South Carolina State, Vanderbilt, and Missouri, Kentucky. You start off, you could easily be 5-0 in that sense, and
You should
well
be
underway.
5-0 with that
Yeah.
schedule. You
So
should
that's
be
what I'm saying.
5-0.
The schedule is very manageable at the front end. You can rest, you can get some guys some rest some weeks early and see what happens. But it is, we are all agreeing. South Carolina's got a brutal run, but the way the schedule does line up, I think there's some manageable wins in there, and we will see. But the coaches poll is out, folks. You can go check it out. It's almost football season, guys. Talking season's here,
Yep.
and
It's been
the
talking
coaches poll
season.
did
It's
its job.
talking season. It's talking season when the season ends until the next kickoff. Talking season is unfortunately longer than the football season.
That's right. We got to have something to do. Well, folks, guys, any final thoughts on that coaches poll?
Yeah.
No? All right, let's move from college football to Major League Baseball. We'll talk about the trade deadline, come and gone. Playoff race is officially underway. Who's excelled at the trade deadline? Who did enough to get over the edge, guys? Who's a loser, a snoozer, whatever you want to call it here. Let's have some fun. Wayne, give us the first pitch in this MLB topic, man. And you like what your Rangers did at the trade deadline?
I was less conscious or concerned about the trades and all that stuff as I was the upcoming August schedule. And we're sort of getting towards the middle of August. And I'm hoping that the trend that Texas has of winning 2 of 3 or maybe all 3 on some of these series continues, because I think they may be able to make the playoffs without wild card, like I said in the opening. But, I've got some other teams in there that I'm kind of hoping will, do the same thing, but are a little bit farther back. San Francisco, Cincinnati, those are all teams that I had thought would do better than they're doing now, but still have a chance.
Todd, what you think? Some winners, some losers, some snoozers?
I'll tell you what, the two biggest winners for me are Seattle and San Diego. I mean, the Mariners, they got Suarez, the third baseman, Josh Naylor, and 2 separate trades with Arizona. That was really good. That's going to pack quite a home run punch with Cal Raleigh. Excuse me, the catcher. And you look at San Diego. To me, the Padres. This to me was a shock. They traded top prospects for A's closer Mason Miller. I just thought, man, wow. I mean, they just literally went for it. They were all in. They added Ryan O'Hearn and Laureano from Baltimore. They added catcher Freddie Furman from Kansas City. This is a team that went all in. And when you look at the NL West and you look how tight it is at this particular moment in time, that tells me they're all in and they're ready to go, and teams are on them. The Tigers, they picked up a starting pitcher, picked up the guy from Atlanta, Charlie Morton. The Reds, excuse me, but I'm surprised Detroit and Cincinnati did not go for offense. I don't like this loser stuff at the trade deadline. I mean, they've got Detroit and Cincinnati listed as a loser. And no, anytime you bolster your rotation in today's game, you've got constant injuries. I thought that was a smart move. I'd like to have seen Detroit and Cincinnati at a bat. But another winner to me, and I have the Phillies going to the World Series. They just, they picked up a closer. Dave Dombrowski knows what he's doing. They don't play around. And when that was their biggest Achilles heel, and they picked up, getting Johan Duran. That dress is their biggest a heel, and now they've corrected it. I really like Philadelphia to win the East, and I'm going to shock you here. the Mets are only 3 games out of being out of the playoffs, and we all know what the Mets are. An accident waiting to happen. Cincinnati is starting to take 2 out of 3. They did it against the Cubs. They had the hiccup in the NASCAR series with Atlanta, which I'll never understand. But they're starting to take 2 out of 3. And you do that, you're going to inch your way there. Cincinnati could stunningly pass the Mets, who spent a fortune.
Yeah,
and hang on, JJ, and also the Yankees, they beat Texas today. You know, Bednar threw about 40 pitches. To me, the Yankees are on that cusp of falling out, and the Tigers, who were up 14 and a half games on Cleveland not long ago, they're only 6 up, 5 in the loss column. We all of a sudden have a race in the AL Central. Baseball is really heating up.
Yeah, it's heating up. I agree with you on the Padres having a good trade deadline. Let me fix my lighting system here. It's falling over. But, yeah, no, I agree with you on the Mariners. I agree with you on the Padres. I would say much of the same things with the Padres and the Mariners. I thought someone building for the future is Sacramento, Las Vegas, Oakland, whatever you want to call them. The A's. They acquired the 3rd best prospect in baseball, an 18-year-old shortstop, and Leo DeVries. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I haven't done quite all my research on it yet, but what I've seen so far, I like what I see. A guy that gets drafted, moves up really quickly, have an exquisite season in high A ball. They got him for closer Mason Miller and J.P. Sears. This guy is going to fit right in with the lineup of Rooker. The guy who hit 4 home runs the other day, Prutz. They got a future. They got a bright future in Oakland, in L.A., Las Vegas. Good Lord, they've been all over the place. In Vegas, when they get to Vegas, they are going to be sitting pretty with this guy. Switch hitting shortstop, one of the more important positions on the field. The guy's extremely athletic, can play third base as well. But it's not very often you get a top 5 prospect for just a reliever and a mid-end starter. So I really like what the A's did to piggyback off your point. Let's move forward from the trade deadline.
JJ, can I say something? Speaking of prospects,
sure.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Really, a lot of these clubs held on to these prospects. You're seeing teams kind of penny pinch because we have the potential strike coming up after the 26th season. Teams are hanging on to the prospects. The fact that San Diego did not kind of surprised me because everybody else did. The Yankees made vast changes to the relief portion of their roster, and they didn't give up any prospects at all. I just find that fascinating that you see more than ever now in Major League Baseball teams hanging on the prospects because 10 years ago, nobody thought about dumping a big prospect to get a big-time Major League player who's proven, and prospects are just prospects to go for the World Series. You really didn't see that except for San Diego. That to me was really fascinating. The teams are starting to tighten the purse strings a little bit. Most of the teams, not the Mets, not the Yankees, and some of the other big markets, but you're seeing teams hold on to the prospects because of a potential strike coming in the future.
Yeah, I was glad you mentioned that. It's very interesting with the potential of that strike looming. The collective bargaining agreement will expire, you are correct, in just 1 full season from now. So, some people that sat on their hands, we can look right around here in Atlanta. I kind of thought the Braves would do a little bit more selling for the future, maybe get that frontline starter for 26 to bolster that starting rotation that technically lost all their opening day starters. I know Strider's there, but he wasn't on the opening day roster technically. So try and bolster that, but they didn't. They're sticking firm. They're going to play for 26. And Snickers said it best. Hey, look, this team, they deserve to stick together and see if they can figure it out in the last 60 games. That was obviously a couple weeks ago. So I was kind of impressed, honestly, that the Braves didn't move anybody in a day and age where you try and improve each and every way. So that was kind of impressive. Todd, your thoughts on the Braves kind of sitting on their
Well,
hands?
you know what? I'm glad you asked, because Marcell Ozuna is going to be not a Brave next year. I'm surprised they didn't move him to try to get a prospect, to try to get a piece, to bolster the farm system. That part surprised me. That was probably the only major surprise I had. We all know that they weren't going to trade a lot from the ball club, but that's one piece I thought they may do, and they did not do it. So that would be my only surprise for Atlanta in terms of that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean. I'm very surprised they just sat on their hands. You had pieces like Marcell Ozuna. You had pieces like Ozzy Albies, who you can move. You can move on from Chris Sale, technically, even though he's on the injured list. There is rumors that he may make a comeback before the season's end. So maybe
his
you
contract
get him healthy.
Would have been hard to move from him. Sale, his contract,
correct,
and
but
being on the injured list.
If you let me finish, I'm just saying, as a general manager, your job is to make the club better. And if you think that nobody else could get you anything for Chris Sale, so be it. But it's just very, very, very surprising that Alex Anthopoulos kind of sat on his hands. But I think that's also might have had something to do with Brian Snicker. He is rumored to be stepping down at the end of the season. Replacements have been talked about for his replacement. Or I should say candidates for his replacement have been talked about. But yeah, it's very interesting what's going on in Atlanta. For 7 straight years, they've been talking about improving the roster at this time of the year. And this is the first time in nearly a decade they have not done that and had that conversation on this podcast or anywhere. So very, very intriguing. But yeah, Todd, you're right. They did not move from Marcell Ozuna. They did not move for the future. And we'll see if it costs them in 26 or not. Wayne, any final thoughts on the MLB trade line? Todd, you too, any final thoughts?
I don't really have any thoughts on the trades or anything, but I did want to mention to some of the viewers or listeners out there, if you really want to have some fun, go back and listen to our episode 191, because that's when we made all of our preseason picks for MLB and for the wild card. So that'd be a fun thing to watch after watching this video.
Yeah, that's where we're heading now. So great transition. Todd, who do you think gets in the National League, man? We'll just do this kind of quickly. You kind of think the Mets fall out completely?
You know what? It just wouldn't shock me one bit. I tell you what, the Cubs are in good shape. Milwaukee's in good shape. I expect Philadelphia to be in. I expect Milwaukee. I expect Chicago. I expect the Dodgers, and I expect San Diego. And I'm going to say it, I think Cincinnati passes the New York Mets for the last spot. They are not pitching well. They're 2-8 in their last 10. I don't see it.
Interesting. I got the Mets still. I picked the Braves at the preseason. So obviously that's a terrible pick. I got the Mets. I think the Mets are going to find a way to win the division. I like what they did adding at their deadline. I think they made themselves a better contender. I think the Brew Crew is going to hold down the Central. I like the Dodgers in the West. And for the wild card, you could flip-flop the Phillies and the Mets in that position, but I think the Mets will play better ball. They had a pretty good July. They haven't hit as many homers as of late, and I think that's one of the reasons they're not scoring as many runs. But I like the Phillies, Cubs, and Padres. And again, those are just my wild card. I haven't put them in what seeds the wild card are, but I do think your NL winners there are the Mets, Brewers, and Dodgers. I think the Mets are going to find a way to win that division. They haven't done it in quite some time. It's one of their what they want to hang their hat on. They want to win the NL East and get in. The American League, I think the Blue Jays hold down the AL East. They've done it all year as a surprise. I think they'll hold it down. The Tigers, I think they'll figure out a way to get some wins down the stretch. I think they'll get in. I like the Astros too, Todd. I like the Mariners, Red Sox, and somehow, some way, I think Judge, Stanton, Trent Grisham in this Yankees roster. I think they find a way to get in somehow, some way. Wayne, you got any surprises or anyone you're adding from your opening day picks?
You know what? One of the teams that I had picked is in the lead right now, but I'm not. I'm wondering if they're going to end up being a wild card instead of just making the playoffs, and that would be Detroit Tigers. I'm feeling uneasy about them. And
did you pick them to win the division at the beginning of the year?
I did.
Yeah, what a nuts pick, and
well,
I wish it was gone to Vegas with it.
It was mostly based on their momentum.
Well,
from last
Detroit
year.
was favored to win the division, gentlemen. Most publications. So
I picked Cleveland in that division. I did. I thought,
and they still could win it.
Yeah,
or Minnesota, I thought too, and
of course
the Astros we mentioned they got Correa back, so there was a lot of movement. What's cool going back to that deadline, there was a lot of moves. It's like 63 trades, 179 players from July 24th to the 31st. Every team made at least one move. Meant to mention that in there.
Speaking of moves, this is so unpredictable. Like, when you get down to the 12 that get in, any of them can win it. There's just no outstanding team in Major League Baseball this year. The Brewers have the best record. They're 25 over. But everybody else is sitting there on that 20 over mark. I mean, there's just no outstanding team. And I'll tell you what, it wouldn't shock me one bit if the Padres humped the Dodgers in the West. They're only 2 out. And they're playing well, and the Dodgers kind of plodding along. So anything can happen. I didn't get my American League, so I guess I'll go ahead and do it. I mean, golly, Toronto, the 3 up on Boston. Boston's an amazing story, gentlemen. Folks had them buried for dead. They signed Roman Anthony to a big 8-year contract today. They believe that kid, and he's the number 1 prospect in baseball, and if you watched him play, you can understand why. But I'll say Toronto wins the division, but it's really close. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to come out and say it. I think Boston wins the East. Toronto's the playoff team. Detroit will barely win the Central. I tell you what, I think Seattle's going to hump Houston in the West. I think it's going to be Seattle, Detroit, and Boston, and then your wild cards: Toronto, Seattle, and Texas. I think the Yankees are going to fall out. I think Texas is going to pass the Yankees. I can't believe I'm uttering it out of my mouth that the Yankees are not going to make it.
Interesting.
I don't. Dude, they don't
Can I
run
get
the
in
bases.
here?
No, I was going to say they don't run the bases very well. They don't catch the ball. You got to have that stuff to get in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I picked the Red Sox at the beginning of the year simply because they had Devers and a couple other players. But, hey, look at that roster, completely different, and they're winning games. They're playing some of their best ball of the season right now. So, Todd, you could be right. That Red Sox roster is pretty unique and built for October. Guys, let's move forward. Go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry.
No, it's young. It's a very young roster. Instead of going at the trade deadline to get pieces, they're relying on the kids.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we go from Major League Baseball. Let's get to our final thoughts. That wraps up our topics for the show. Wayne, tee us off, man. Your final thought for the evening.
Well, my final thought is I'm beginning to get text and email messages from the University of Memphis reminded me to buy not just football season tickets, but that my basketball tickets have already been purchased. So I'm already somewhere in the back of my mind thinking about round ball already, and that's just too weird.
Round ball rock, baby. Todd, what you got for your final thought, buddy?
How funny. You know, Aaron Rodgers' first pass was a pick six in Steelers training camp. We can go locally. Kirk Cousins' first pass in his scrimmage is a pick six to Leonard Floyd. You know what I think about that? I think it absolutely, unequivocally means zero. But I thought I'd throw it out there, and I'll give you guys something. Top 5 sports cities professional in America. To me, it's got to be New York, Los Angeles, Boston, Pittsburgh, and
Detroit. Over Chicago, huh?
Detroit.
Yeah.
I don't know about Detroit. I mean, it's completely subjective in terms of that. If you want to go championships,
subjective, but look at the championships.
You could do championships. You could have fun with it, but that's not a bad list. My final thought: PGA needs to change their FedEx Cup playoff rules, whatever they want to call it, FedEx playoff rules. Rory McIlroy plans to skip this weekend's FedEx event at the St. Jude Classic. The fact you can do this in golf and still advance in a playoff format absolutely kills the competitor in me. In fact, he could skip this week and next week and still get to the Tour Championship in East Lake in Atlanta in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. That's atrocious. You don't need your best golfers skipping playoff events. The sport is let's just say that the coverage of the playoff event is reeling, except for the Tour Championship, obviously. And one of your best golfers in the world who completed the Grand Slam of majors this year is just conveniently sitting this one out. And, Wayne, you mentioned it's right in your neck of woods, man. It's in Memphis. So big-time ticket buster right there. You know, a couple people going to see Rory. They may not go see the event now.
Well,
and stuff like that I don't like.
Well, the thing about my experience with the FedEx St. Jude Classic is it is across the street from my subdivision where they have at Southwind. And so whenever that happens, I get to see the blimp flying around really close.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I never knew that. That's actually pretty unique. Well, Wayne, Todd, that wraps it up. For Wayne in Memphis, Larry in Adairsville, who is out in the field, Todd in Woodstock, I'm JJ right here in Lilburn, Georgia. Thanks for watching. Again, if you like the content, please like and subscribe at ATL Prime Sports across the board. And we'll see you next week, folks. Get you one. Football season's right around the corner.